The rest of the meeting will be very interesting.
Poison control. It's just 70 proof. You ready, Rob?
It is.
Good evening and welcome to our special City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 26, 2020, and I would like to call the special meeting to order at 6 p.m. Regular meetings are held on the first and third Tuesday of each month in the Council of City Chambers. Madam Clerk, please call roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Genoway?
Present.
Councilmember Jennings?
Here.
Councilmember Rains?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Minigar?
Present.
And Mayor Davies?
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask Mayor Pro Tem Miniger to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
My pleasure. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the greatest country on the face of the earth? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we're now going to move to public communications. Madam Clerk, do we have any public communications?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. We're going to close public communications then. All right, our next item is a study session for proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 operating and capital improvement program budget. City Manager Letourneau, please provide a staff report.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. It's a pleasure to present the fiscal year 2020-2021 operating and capital improvement budget to you this evening. The city's 30th anniversary celebration last year culminated in the adoption of the city's first strategic plan. It is these specific goals and strategies that guided our decision-making in the preparation of this budget. The City of Laguna Niguel's fiscal sustainability has been a pillar of pride and is the goal that this community was built on. The city leaders have worked hard to build the community by providing infrastructure, programs, and services while saving money for emergencies and important capital projects without taking on debt. It is that philosophy and approach that has resulted in the healthy financial position that the city has today. However, this year, the city's been faced with a fiscal crisis, a global pandemic. That makes the commitment to fiscal sustainability even more important. The focus of this budget is on providing essential services to the community while keeping everyone safe and maintaining the city's infrastructure. Even with this tremendous economic challenges the city faces, the fiscal year 2020-2021 operating and capital improvement budget is balanced at $52.5 million. The essential services are funded and will continue to be provided to the community in the coming year. The city's reserves are only being used for the completion of two critical capital improvement projects, the community center at Crown Valley Park and the design of the Crown Valley Widening project. Because of the significant decreases in revenues, significant decreases in expenditures were required by all city departments. The fiscal impacts of COVID-19 on the city of Laguna Niguel are significant. Because of the nature of this emergency and the impacts that the city experienced financially, immediate changes to the city's fiscal year 19-20 expenditures and fiscal year 2021 expenditures were needed to address the significant loss in revenue and emergency expenditures. Economic recovery is going to be slow. It will take many years for sales tax revenues, for example, to return to pre-pandemic levels. Even though we are in challenging times, Laguna Niguel has a great deal to be proud of. We have a beautiful and safe community that will continue to be maintained and protected. A new community center that will be completed in fall of 2020. There is reason for optimism and a hope for health and prosperity ahead. I want to express my gratitude to the City Council for their wise and prudent stewardship of the city's financial resources. I also want to thank staff of the Finance Department for their hard work on this budget. In addition, my sincere thanks to the department heads and budget liaisons for all of their hard work, cooperation, dedication to working together as a team to address these budget issues. Tonight, we will present the details of both the operating and capital improvement budgets for fiscal year 2020-2021. I'm going to turn over the presentation to Finance Director Hendricks.
Thank you, City Manager Letourneau. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. It is a pleasure to be here tonight in this great city of Laguna Niguel, and I am proud to present to you the proposed budget for next fiscal year. Tonight, we plan to go through a slideshow highlighting the operating budget and capital budget. This proposed budget encompasses all the projected fiscal activity for the city between July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. The budget document in front of you is the culmination of many months of work. The budget process started this past January when each department starts formulating their expenditure requests. Then we analyze revenue trends, project out salary and benefit costs, and refine all of our estimates. After we receive direction from you tonight, we plan to bring forth the budget for adoption at the June 16th, 2020 City Council meeting. We appreciate the questions that you've already given to us prior to the meeting, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have after the presentation. To start with some good news, the operating budget is balanced. We project general fund operating revenues to be $40.89 million next year, and operating expenditures to be $40.69 million. This is a difference of $200,000. However, we do have 3 general fund capital projects, which total $4.2 million. And as City Manager Letourneau mentioned, there will be a use of reserves equaling $4 million. As we are all well aware, the fiscal implications of COVID-19 are serious. This health crisis has impacted almost every source of revenue that the city receives. Of the $40.89 million of general fund monies, property tax and sales taxes make up 82% of that. We are budgeting property tax at $22.88 million next year, the exact same amount from this current year. We took a conservative approach to estimating this amount. In most normal budget years, it is safe to assume a 2 to 3% increase in property taxes. However, given the health crisis, there will be declines in the amount of real estate sales and price points. It is also likely that higher unemployment rates could cause homeowners to delay or miss payments to the county tax collector. As for sales taxes, we estimate to receive $10.61 million next year. This is quite obviously the most impacted revenue source. This estimate came from HDL, our city's sales tax consultant. It is approximately 10% lower than just last fiscal year, 2018-19. High unemployment rates, poor consumer confidence, forced business closures, and stay-at-home orders have caused this drastic decline in revenue. On this slide, you will see a 4-year general fund revenue historical trend. I've broken out the 4 main sources of revenue that the city receives and then lumped the rest together in the other category. This includes other taxes, interest income, fines and forfeitures, and parks and recreation revenue. You can see the decline year over year. From just last year, general fund revenues have dropped $2.8 million. You can find a detailed breakdown of all general fund revenues on page 13 of your budget book. This decline in revenue has forced the city to respond accordingly. When the budget process began in January, approximately $44 million was requested across all departments. When the health crisis emerged, it became apparent that we needed to reduce spending. We eventually lowered the amount to what is in front of you today, a proposal of operating expenditures at $40.69 million. So how exactly did we reduce projected spending next year? The city manager has taken a voluntary 5% salary reduction. The department heads have taken a voluntary deferral of all merit increases and the planned 2.5% increase that was previously agreed upon. We've reduced the city's fleet by 7 vehicles. We have furloughed 106 part-time employees, mostly in the Parks and Recreation Department. We've reduced full-time employees by 7 equivalents from 69 down to 62. We've reduced contractual services across all departments, including legal, building, planning, and including consulting and professional services. Also, the cancellation of city-sponsored events has also helped with the budget reduction measures. As I've mentioned, the operating budget is $40.69 million, and the capital budget for the general fund is $4.2 million, which equates to a total general fund spending next year of $44.89 million. This pie chart is a useful illustration of where your general fund dollars are going. It represents council's priorities, with the bulk of money going towards public safety and public works. The full expenditure summary is found on page 11 of your budget book. At this juncture, I'd like to highlight some of the budgetary activities of each department. In your city council department, we have a continued contribution towards community organization grants, including sponsorships, clubs, events, and programs. We've also reduced some of the funds for the recording and broadcasting expense line item due to the cancellation of some of the city events as well. In the administration department, the IT support contract has moved from admin over to non-departmental, and we also have included continued funding for the Chamber of Commerce in these tough times, seeing that we'll need to have some economic recovery and need their help in terms of what the Chamber can offer. The city clerk budget is slightly higher this next year, but that's mainly due to the $50,000 line item for election expenses for the November 2020 election. And we were able to slightly reduce the budget for records management in her department as well. The city attorney's budget is slightly lower as well, based on a negotiated reduction in the contract and a lower projected usage in that as well. Non-departmental is a department that houses expenses that can't readily be allocated to any one department. This includes citywide building supplies, insurance costs, contingencies, and the aforementioned information technology that's been moved into it. For next year's budget, this department does include a $275,000 contingency fund for any unforeseen expenses or emergencies that may arise. For public safety, the biggest draw on this department is the sheriff's contract. It has increased to $15.48 million next year. However, the SLESA fund, which is a special sales tax we receive from the state, pays for $150,000 of that, which means the general fund will only be paying for $15.33 million for the sheriff's contract next year. It is important to note here that current service levels will be maintained for next year's projected budget. In the Community Development Department, this is another department that's seen some big hits to the revenue they produce from permits and fees. We've approximated that 20 to 30% of their revenue is going to be lower than what it was this year. Likewise, we had to reduce their professional services and usage of consultants in that department. In the Public Works Department, the overall budget was reduced from 13.33 million down to 11.92 million. Likewise, they've also had a reduction in professional services, consultants, slightly reduced expenditures in landscaping. We have budgeted funds for maintaining the new community center that's slated to open up later this year. And internally, we have combined their divisions and functions from 11 down to 6, just for streamlining our operations. Finally, in the Parks and Recreation Department, this is easily one of the hardest hit departments due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We had to close all facilities and programs, reduce part-time staffing, and cancel many of the special events. Forecasting revenues and expenditures was a little bit difficult with them, but we do expect some of the operations to begin to reopen in the fall or maybe at mid-year, just depending on what we are allowed to do. As for staffing changes, as I've previously mentioned, we've reduced the full-time employee headcount from 69 down to 62, a reduction of 7 people. This has affected the Public Works Department with their senior civil engineer and their environmental services supervisor. In the Community Development Department, we have reduced the grading engineer, the secretary, and the assistant planner. Those positions are now gone. And in the Parks and Recreation Department, we have reduced it by 2 recreation coordinators. There will be some reclassifications and modifications in the staffing changes for next year too. In the Public Works Department, we are reclassifying the management analyst to a senior management analyst. For the administration and city council function, the executive secretary is going to be reclassed to a management analyst. The Community Development Department is going to have their administrative secretary reclassified to an executive secretary. Also to note is that we are standardizing the Public Works Superintendent classifications, and there will be the creation of a Maintenance Services Manager position. So, all in all, this is where it leaves us. The estimated fund balance at June 30, 2020, the end of next month, is projected to be $35.1 million. Next fiscal year, we plan to bring in $40.9 million. Operating expenses are $40.7. Capital expenses are $4.2 million. And at the end of the day, that will leave us with a $31.1 million fund balance for the general fund. It's important to note here that the city's reserve policy is 50% of annual operating expenses. And with this formula on the screen, the city has achieved a 76% ratio. That concludes my presentation on the operating budget for next year. At this juncture, I'm going to turn it over to the Public Works Director, Jackie Scott, for an overview of next year's capital improvement projects. After her presentation, we'd be happy to field any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hendrickson, Honorable Mayor, and members of the City Council. I'm happy to present to you the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 capital improvement program budget. This year's proposed CIP includes a total of 9 projects and $7.2 million in requested funding. The 9 projects include the remaining funds to complete the Crown Valley Park Tier 3 community building, install improvements to the city's roadways, replace the aging pedestrian bridge at Yosemite Park, and upgrade the restrooms at Sea Country Senior and Community Center to meet current ADA standards. Whenever possible, the 9 projects in the city's proposed CIP were funded through third-party restricted funds to minimize use of city general funds. For example, AQMD funds were allocated to the regional traffic signal synchronization projects along Alicia Parkway and Aliso Creek. CDBG funds are proposed to pay for the audible pedestrian push-button improvements, and gas tax and other restricted roadway funds will be utilized for street improvements. Of the $7.2 million in the proposed CIP budget, $4.2 million is proposed from the general fund. The Alicia Parkway traffic signal synchronization project is complete through the design and construction phase. The updated signal timing has been installed, and the project remains in a maintenance phase for the next 3 years while the signal timing is monitored and adjusted. The Aliso Creek Traffic Signal Synchronization Project is a joint project with the cities of Aliso Viejo and Laguna Niguel. This project will retime 23 signals along a 5-mile corridor through a cooperative agreement under the Measure M2 program. OCTA is the lead agency, and it is expected that the construction of improvements and implementation of updated timing will occur in 2021. The city has a program to install audible pedestrian signal push button upgrades within the city's 84 signalized intersections. These improvements are a CDBG eligible expense within designated neighborhoods. This program is also part of the city's overall ADA transition plan to comply with state and federal ADA requirements. To date, this program has upgraded 18 intersections with another 8 intersections planned in fiscal year 2021 along Golden Lantern, Rancho Niguel, and La Paz. The Crown Valley Widening project from I-5 to Oso Creek is 75% complete in the design phase. This project was approved as part of the EIR adoption for the Gateway Specific Plan in 2011. In 2015, the city obtained a Measure M2 grant that funds approximately $900,000 of the total design cost, with the remaining $600,000 funded from city matching funds. The project, when constructed, will add a 4th through lane and a designated right turn lane onto Forbes Road. At this time, construction funding is not available. However, the city will seek a Measure M2 grant through OCTA to pay a significant portion of the construction phase costs in a future year funding cycle call for projects. The Gaile Road resurfacing project is being designed in 2 phases. Phase 1 limits are from Marina Hills to Highlands Avenue. Design is 95% complete, and the project will be ready for bid in July. The project is proposed for funding through the SB1 gas tax program. The Paseo de Colinas groundwater seepage project is also about 95% complete with the design phase and is on schedule to advertise for bids in July. This project will install an underground drainage system and connect to the city's storm drain that will serve to eliminate subsurface water that seeps onto the roadway through the rainy season each year. The Crown Valley Park Tier 3 project is nearly complete and has been issued a certificate of occupancy. City staff is currently utilizing the building, while the remaining punch list items are being finalized by the various contracted trades. The requested allocation of $3.4 million will complete contractor payments for work that has already been completed and allow release of the 5% retention held from the construction phase. The $3.4 million will also fund the completion of artwork, wayfinding signage, parking lot slurry seal, and interior furnishings as the city prepares the park for opening to the public. It should be noted that the $3.4 million for the community center is what is left over to finish the project, not an additional appropriation. This money would have been spent in fiscal year 1920, but needed to be carried over to 2021 because of COVID-19. The Pedestrian Bridge in Yosemite Park is currently advertised for construction bids. This project was designed last year and will replace the original bridge constructed in the park in the 1970s. The project will also include ADA upgrades and replanting of landscaping around the bridge area. This project is a high priority to the Lake Park Homeowners Association near Yosemite Park. I've been in contact with representatives for the HOA, keeping them appraised of the overall project status and anticipated construction schedule. The Sea Country and Community Center restroom renovations will upgrade the aging restrooms, meeting current ADA standards. This project is eligible for CDBG funds. The project will be advertised in August, and construction is anticipated to be complete before the end of the year. That concludes my CIP presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'm going to start with council. Any comments? Councilmember Jennings.
Great, thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for staff. I want to especially welcome Eric to the process. It's nice to have you here. That was a very succinct presentation, and I appreciate that. Not only its content, but the way it was presented, and that's very helpful. So thank you very much for that. And Director Scott, thank you for all you're doing as well. There are presumptions built into every budget, and one of the presumptions that sort of stands out is this: we know the sales tax component, we don't know the property tax component. We're not sure what that's going to do to California. We're all projecting that it shouldn't take more than 5% one way or another in this year. My understanding is we've more or less baked in a 2 to 3% cushion because we didn't increase our projections off of last year. That's correct?
Correct.
All right. I'm assuming that that's correct. I don't have any data to decide one way or another as I sit here. I know that we'll track it, and we do have a cushion built into the budget. So it could be at mid-year, but we could do it at any time to make sure that we're still on track with those projections. And
Correct. Yeah. Because the county liens properties as of January 1st, prior to the fiscal year that it's applied to, that date happened before this COVID-19 pandemic really occurred. But as we know, the county and the state are throwing around different proposals of delayed property tax, the high unemployment rates. People are losing their jobs. They may miss their property tax payments, which eventually does affect us down the road.
yeah, and I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned for the residents because I really don't want them to be in that bind. If I could wave a wand, I would put everybody back in full employment. So I guess I'm just noting for posterity the fact that we find ourselves in a very strong set of unknowns that none of us are comfortable being in. We rely on projections, and I think that's sound governance. We're doing the best we can. It may well be that we come in at full receipt of all our property taxes, and that creates a buffer of 2 to 3% that will only add to our benefit next year as we go through it. Or we could find ourselves in some other quandary that we haven't fully realized yet because we don't fully know the default rate on those. And it's all presuming that businesses reopen and that employment drops down from 25%. But I promise you, if we stay at 25%, I don't have the Laguna Niguel specific numbers on that, we're going to see a much stronger decrease in property tax revenues over 2 to 3% if that number doesn't start getting back into parity, because right now it's not. So that's one of those big things. I have a sinking feeling in my chest that I worry about things, and that's one that I'm very worried about. I guess the projections are right. I have no reason to believe they're not on sales taxes. We've projected them down year over year volume. We have reason to believe that the primary sales generators for sales tax remain accurate. Unless you're telling me otherwise, I think that that's probably going to remain true. I mean, obviously, car sales are one, and consumer spending is the bulk of it. So I suspect that that's going to come back in earnest, but we will know in the next 2 or 3 months what the recovery looks like. So I don't know if we have I heard someone today talking about the percentage of businesses that are not reopening in, I think it was New York or something like that, but it was tremendous. I mean, it was like a factor of 10, like 10% of all businesses just no longer exist. And the other 90% have yet to prove themselves about whether or not they can recover. So I say all of that to say that we have a different job this year, and our different job is to ride herd over what these trends are month over month. And you'll be watching it for us. And we'll be hoping that we can get more let me give you a compliment and then tell you what I think we might want to look at. The compliment is that we very rarely have to worry about our finances in our monthly meetings. It's all in there, and you all prepare amazing reports. We read them, but it's all been good news. And so I think what we might want to do is to just take a pause on our future finance agenda items and make sure that we're paying attention to those numbers. I know that you all are, but maybe we can call those out and think about them and see what the trend lines look like to make sure that we're not trending someplace off. So I know that's part of your full-time job. So I know it's in good hands, and the city manager will do it as well. But for mine, I'm concerned about it, so I think I'll take a look at it. One thing stuck out about the reduction in our contract services. I was trying to see if our residents would actually notice a reduction in service for the contract services that we're pulling back on. And they are related to things that usually they don't encounter. So there are some people who will be pulling permits and things that may see less people or less hours or less follow-up. But for the most part, I was looking at it from the eyes of a resident, trying to decide what my city's going to look like differently. And I didn't think that reduction was going to move the needle too much. So that was my hope, and we can keep an eye on that as well. The real, the one that really pulls at our heartstrings is is the reason that people love Laguna Niguel. It's the joy of being here and the joy of community and the things that we do. That we've got our streets smooth and our parks are looking good, but the events that define us, I just don't see them here. And that's of course sad. That may be the sacrifice. And when we talk about shared sacrifice, I think that's where we're living right now, is in the land of things that we might need to give up just to make sure that we make it, to do our right thing, so that when this comes around next year, maybe we can all smile and say how nicely it went and how much more money we have, and the recovery was stronger. But I've talked to the city manager about this, and I know that my colleagues have as well, that we're really looking at sort of a 5 to 6 year grow out from this budget cycle, so that year over year, my expectations would be that we would start replacing events back into the budget and replacing improvements back in the budget. But till then, we remain in a very status quo place. And I'm hoping that the children that grow up in the next 5 years in town get to have some events, and that the adults that will spend the bulk of their adult life in the next 5 years will get to enjoy what we've come to know as usual in Laguna Niguel. The CIP projects, I think they're a shadow of our former self. I've been through so many CIP meetings over the last 4 years, and looking at them on Planning Commission before that, what we're doing now is abundantly not aggressive. It's not. It's just about the least that we can do with the money that we have, and I say that in the most complimentary way, because we're still doing lots of things. But it brought me to a point that I think of the infrastructure that the city spends to monitor CIP and to monitor projects and things like that, and all the costs that's baked into our general admin system, such as 2 planning commission meetings a month, the Parks and Rec Commission meetings, and all of that. And I think that if we can, we need to try to find a way to reduce all of those overheads back, pull them back, so that we're not spending them, because there just isn't that much to review. I mean, Parks and Rec is not going to have to pour through a CIP budget this year, because there's not going to be any CIP projects really to look at. So maybe we could try to find a way to find some admin savings on that. They'll be marginal, I know, but they will be important, and they reduce a lot of burden on staff, which will already be taxed, and I think that's a way to go. I just want to throw an asterisk on and draw a circle around the $3.4 million remaining on the Grand Valley Community Building. We've already approved that money. We approved it last year. It's a holdover. We didn't get to spend it in this fiscal year because of COVID, so we get to vote on it again. So there it is again. And my reiteration is that it's not new money. It's old money, and that we knew about it. It's there. It's inside the budget. We're not nothing. I haven't heard anything here that says that we're not on budget or that we're not under budget. In fact, we may actually be. So with that, I just want to say thank you. And those are my observations on that. And thank you, Mayor.
Madam Mayor, can I have one follow-up? I just want to let everyone know. So we are committing, because of the situation that we're into, quarterly, thorough budget presentations to you during this next year, because things are so delicate. So you'll be getting quarterly reports from us as we go forward, instead of just the traditional mid-year budget.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Genoway.
Thank you, Mayor Davies. And thank you for the presentation. This was very concise, very clear, very easy to understand. And I appreciate that, because, you know, we have all had meetings and we've had our budget reviews and we've gone over it. I know I went over it with the city manager and deputy city manager. I go page by page, line by line, but our residents don't have that opportunity. So I'm glad when there's something like this that they can see exactly what we're doing. I also want to commend our city manager on this fantastic new format for the budget. It is very transparent. It is very easy to look at and understand what's going on. I know when I first got on city council, the budget binder was probably 4 to 5 inches thick, and each section had multiple tabs, so you had to drill down, and it was very complicated. But this, anyone can pick up and read, and that's what I like for our residents. They should be able to read our budget without having meeting with the city manager. So thank you. I know you put a lot of work into that, so thank you to everyone who participated in that. I do have a couple of questions. I know Councilman Jennings spoke a little bit about sales tax and kind of went a little more on property tax. I want to drill down, though, on the sales tax number, because that's about 25% of our revenue. And I know you received the estimate from HDL that it will be 10% lower this year. But I'm looking at our businesses and how long they've been closed, and we're already about 10 weeks into stay at home, which is 20% of the year. So I am not that confident that it's only going to be 10% lower, because we know when our businesses get up and running again, our restaurants are not going to be at full capacity, and even the retail stores, there will be some reluctance with people going out to retail stores to shop, and other people now have become very accustomed to shopping online. So when did we get that 10% lower number from HDL? Was it the beginning of
We received
this?
that, it was in late April. I want to say April 25th, April 26th, about a month ago.
So it was
This
about
was
a
the
month
second
ago.
revision. Their first, they give us numbers pretty early on in the shutdown, and then they revise them downward based upon the length of the stay-at-home orders, when it was clear that this was not going to last a few weeks. It was going to last a couple months. So this is the second iteration.
So
of
was
this.
that 10% number looking at going through the end of May, or was that going through the end of April? Because we
No,
have a
it
whole
was-
nother month since that number.
It was the
that
end of
we're-
May, if I recall
Well,
correctly.
The 10% drop is talking about next year's sales tax revenues. So that includes any sales between July 1st and June 30th. So if things do start to pick back up this next month,
Okay,
we're talking literally
so what's
Sales
happening
next
now
year.
is going to be in the 2019,
19.
2020 sales tax, which we've already figured has gone down.
Yeah, if you look on page 11 of your budget
Mhm.
book, you'll see that we estimated initially to receive that very first top line item, sales taxes. We budgeted to receive 11.72 million
Mhm.
in fiscal year 1920. HDL came back and said it's going to be closer to 10.93 million this fiscal year. So just this fiscal year alone, it was a drop of about $800,000.
Okay,
And that's what's affected in February, March, April, now May and June next month as well. So next year, we estimate that 10% drop from this fiscal year.
from the slow recovery of businesses getting back
Correct.
online from July 1.
Starting July
forward.
1, correct.
Okay, and how often do we get our updates from HDL?
We get them normally every quarter. However, we can request updates from them at any time. Case in point, this most recent update, we've been in contact with them 2 or 3 times, and they've given us updates. It usually takes about a week or 2 to get real good data from them,
Mhm.
but we can get it when we request it.
HDL has a whole team that's been together, putting models together and refining these as time goes on. And if I recall correctly, the last one we received was projecting closures through the end of May.
Correct.
Okay, all righty. And would it be possible to get something before we pass the budget, just to get a look to see if there's any significant change?
Yeah, I'll request I'll send them an email tomorrow and seeing if they have any updates from this projection. I can't promise that they do, but I can request it.
Yeah, but just so that we have the best information available when we actually pass the budget, that would be
course.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of other comments that I have, and this is mostly on the CIP projects. I know, for many, many years, our city and our community has saved and waited for the Crown Valley Park Tier 3 opening. So I know I concur with Councilman Jennings that it's a little bit sad to see some of the activities we have had in the city not take place this year. But I think our community is they're very understanding of the reasons why. And they also, in their own businesses and in their own homes, have had to tighten the belt. But I'll tell you, when that Crown Valley Park building opens up, that new community center, I think that'll make up everything. I mean, that'll be just so wonderful. It'll be such a gift to our community. I mean, it's a gift that the taxpayers have paid for many, many years. But I think hopefully that'll be so exciting that it'll kind of replace some of the missing the other activities that we are not able to have this year. So I know we're all looking forward to that. And I also see that the Yosemite Park Bridge was kept on the CIP. And I just want to commend the residents of that neighborhood of Lake Park for being very patient and working with the city on that, because that is something that they came to us a number of years ago. And it is a bridge that desperately needs to be replaced. And I'm glad to see that it is going to be happening, during this summer. So thank you for moving that forward. And that's all my comments, Mayor Davies.
Thank you. Councilmember Raines.
Thank you so much. I do want to echo my colleague council member Genoway when she says that this budget was definitely prepared in a format that is easy for everyone to read and to understand. And I thank you all for the hard work in presenting such a easy document for all of us, because it really does make a difference, especially in times like this. I think that being able to be real transparent and making sure that our residents have a document that's easy for them to read and understand is quite important. So thank you for that. I do have, talking about the sales tax, I think we're all very concerned about that. And when I'm looking on page 11, I'm noticing that we're saying that our projection is about 10% based on HDL. The last report I got from HDL was dated April 9th of 2020. So I don't know if you guys have a more updated one. That's the one that I had, was April 9th. So it's several weeks. I mean, it's almost 2 months old now. So the numbers that you project on here are 10,930 for 2019-2020. That's the law showing, indicating the loss. But projecting forward, it only shows a $323,000 difference, which is a lot less than a 10%. So I just wanted to clarify, like, how did you get to that number?
I believe the 10% was the drop from 18-19 to 2021.
Okay.
I don't have the document in front of me that you're referencing, but I
Oh,
believe
it's the
that's
page 11 of the budget workbook, on page 11.
yeah. Obviously, the difference between what they're projecting is the 10.93. What they previously projected before the COVID-19 was 11.72. I don't think that number's on there because that was on a previous projection that they gave us
Right.
months and months ago. So that $11.72 million, that drop down to 10.6 million next year is approximately 1.1 million. And I think that's where that 10% drop number, the percentages that we're quoting, is from.
So are you taking it from the 1920, not the 19? Is that
We
so
see
from
on
the
the-
11?
Yeah,
You're taking it from the 11.7 million. Okay,
Yeah,
that's where
that was the
number-
original budget figure they
Okay.
gave us. And then
I just wanted to just clarify, because I wanted to make sure, because I too am just as concerned as both of my other colleagues who've spoken already about the fact that we really don't have a crystal ball. That I know that they've done a good job, but we've never faced anything like this before. And I appreciate our city manager telling us that she's going to you guys are going to be doing a quarterly update, because I think that's going to be even more critical and crucial right now during this time for us to really be able to look at that and adjust. And with that being said, if we were to adjust, we've already streamlined so many different things. I don't even know where we would adjust at. So I think that's a concern that I have, and I hope that we'll look at. Obviously, we're in good shape because we have some reserves, but we should try to do everything in our power not to use those reserves. So thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. The other question I had real quick was for Public Works Director Scott. On the capital improvement project for the Crown Valley Widening project, I just wanted to clarify that I understood. You said it's 75% complete. And have we received the M2 grant funds of $900,000 already?
Councilmember Raines, that project has been in design for a couple of years, and we have invoiced OCTA and received just over $500,000 of that $900,000.
Okay.
When the project is 100% complete, we can then invoice for the balance.
So that's what you meant by invoicing for the balance later. When you said applying for additional funds. That's what you were referencing, was the difference between what we've received and what we haven't received yet.
The balance of the funds are already an agreement we have with OCTA. The additional funds would be to assist the city in paying for the construction phase costs when we're ready to move to that next phase in the project.
Okay, so would that be a separate project then that would be presented to us? It wouldn't be this CIP project, it would be a future CIP project?
That is correct. When we do move to the construction phase, we will present that in a CIP for the cost of that phase and have that approved by council as well.
Okay, thank you so much for the clarification. I appreciate that. With that being said, the only other comments that I have is I really, like I mentioned earlier, is I really appreciate this budget and all the cuts, and especially the staffing. I know it's been a difficult time we love our staff, and we have so many wonderful staff members, including our part-time staff that have been furloughed. But one of the things that I noticed is that with the staff being so short, I'm just concerned about, will all of our measures that we've taken so far to keep everybody getting what they need, the critical services, that we haven't cut anything too short. That's the first one. And that we are going to be able to meet the critical needs. That's a concern I have.
Yes, I'm confident with the outstanding staff that we have that we will be able to fulfill all the goals and objectives that we presented to you in this budget and provide everything to the community that they need.
Okay. And then finally, just the thought that I wanted to mention was one of the main things that I think is going to be important. The strategic plan was our first step towards planning for our future. But in order for us to really be on track, and with something like this coming up, it's really given us an opportunity to hit a reset button. In order for us to move forward beyond this year and maybe the next couple of years as we're resetting, one of the things that I noticed we don't address at all is any type of a general plan update or even some specific plan updates for certain areas. And I know that the budget is really tight, but just something I wanted to make sure that we're being cognizant of and considering. And
We actually have some good news about that.
Oh,
and I'm
good.
going to let Community Development Director Orduña come up and share.
Okay, perfect.
We didn't include it in the budget but we're applying for a grant, and I'll let him talk to you about
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Good evening, Mayor Davies and Council. In terms of funding for those long-range advanced planning items, we do have, we just received word that we have secured over $300,000 in funding through SB2. And as part of that, we will be using some of those funds toward at least one specific plan update. We anticipate that come the end of the year, we should be able to set aside approximately $250,000 or so toward a general plan update. And our initial plan was that over a 4-year period, we would be able to accumulate about $1 million. And so
Great.
we think that we will be able to stay on track given everything we know at this time. And we're also applying for a number of other grants as well, but that's the only one we have official information on, and that's above and beyond what's in your budget.
That's exciting to hear. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'm sure my colleagues will appreciate that as well, because it will help us set the pace for the future. That's all. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Well, I'm very pleased with our budget this year. I mean, $52.5 million, a balanced budget. I'm very proud of the city, my colleagues, and the staff. Since 1989 that we were incorporated, we've been able to balance our budget, unlike a couple of cities in Orange County that they always have to borrow money because they don't know how to balance their budgets. We are all fiscally conservative and we all move in the same direction. Having said that, a couple of comments, one amplification and 2 questions. With regard to Crown Valley Parkway Community Center, $3.4 million plus $0.6 million, which is for the Crown Valley Parkway widening. I'm happy that we've been using this money 6 years ago when I joined the city council. We voted for different tiers of all those projects that we never accomplished in the city, and it was the perfect time to do that. So the $4.0 million that we are tapping into, because as Councilmember John Mark Jennings mentioned that it was already budgeted, except because of COVID-19, we just delayed that because we were supposed to have the groundbreaking on May 1st, 2020. So it's a matter of transitioning, basically offsetting that, correct? So it's not in actuality the way it sounds that we're going to tap into our cash reserves, that in this city is one of those things that we don't want to do.
Correct. Yeah, this is just a matter of accounting principles that we expense items
Right.
when we have incurred the expense.
Right,
So not
right.
until the work has been done is with the accounting period in which we recognize the expense. So yeah, it's a matter of timing.
Very good.
We project for that project will be at or under budget when the project is complete.
Including other items
Mhm.
that you have directed to be
Yes,
done.
yes.
Very good. We're on the same page. Now, I was on a conference call with Congressman Holly Ruda and OCTA's CEO Darrell Johnson this afternoon. And I wanted to bring it up that have you made any provisions for the potential funding that we are going to be receiving as a municipal corporation in Orange County in California and in the US through CARES Act or potential HEROES Act? As we all know, according to Congressman Harley this afternoon, he said that it's all depends upon the Senate Majority Leader to push it through or just to be at the kind of standstill as we are. So what is the good news from CARES or HEROES?
I don't have any yet. This budget assumes that we're not getting any because we haven't seen any yet. So any news that we get that's positive, we will come back to you and reallocate. We've had a lot of expenses with regard to this. So we are hopeful. We've been fighting for it, lobbying for it, and we hope we get some. But as of this moment, we have no guarantees we're getting any.
Well, that's an excellent answer, an excellent position for our city to be into, because we have no provisions
We're not.
assuming that we are going to be getting it, because it's going to be based on competition,
Yes.
as you well know,
Yes.
and how they're going to be
We've applied
allocating
for
it.
our FEMA funds. We've applied to everybody that will listen, but and we're taking it a day at a time regarding that.
So $52.5 million assumes that we are not
That's correct.
receiving any of that money from the federal
That's
government.
correct.
Okay, very good. I did not see any, maybe I can direct you to the Director of Community Development for the VMT methodology. As you know, the state law requires that every city in California, 484 cities by June 31st, they have to have a VMT methodology in place.
Yes, community development is working with Public Works on that item right now, and I believe we're getting fairly close on that. We have a consultant that we've retained.
So it's going to come to the City Council for ratification.
Yes.
And it's going to be we have maybe June 16th.
Do you know if we have a date? Okay, tentatively in June, that's what we're hoping.
We're going to have 2 readings on that, or 1? 2 readings.
2 readings. I haven't seen the report yet. We haven't talked about the details.
Yeah, I think we want to, the date is still tentative. Of course, we will follow the standard process, and if it is an ordinance, I believe there are 2 readings required.
And are we going to have any exchange program embedded in that besides the VMT methodology?
I have not yet seen the draft, so I can't speak to the particulars of what will be in the.
It's for mitigation measures, as you know.
Yeah, so we will certainly have more information on that for you as we move forward. And as the
Okay,
consultant
very good.
produces
And
the document.
I compared 2019, 2020 with 2020, 2021. The difference is $16 million, $16.099 million. And I'm very happy that I see that after about a year or so, 2 years at most, we are going to be able to be on the positive side when it goes back to, the curve with regard to our budgets.
That's what we're hoping so. We don't know how quickly that's going to happen, but yes.
Right,
So
as it was mentioned, we don't know about our small businesses, we
Right.
don't know about the homeowners,
Right.
we don't know about all those property taxes and how it's going to be turned out to
we are in
be.
unprecedented times.
Absolutely correct.
Mhm.
So I guess with that, very dynamic, comprehensive, complete presentation, and welcome to your first budget study session. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. As we were talking to Eric, I'm like, you thought you got through the year without having to do it, and here you get the chance to do it. So it was a very good report, and
Thank
again,
you.
very precise and very clear. So thank you. Just a couple of questions in regards to the expenses we've had with COVID-19. How much have we spent up to this date?
I'm being told $205,000 to date.
And where is that coming from?
Well, it's coming from our contingency
Okay.
funds
All right.
from this year.
And again,
now.
and then I know right now with the CARES Act, the supervisors put aside 26 million to go towards COVID-19 expenses. Would that be where we would be hoping to get that paid for?
Well, we also applied to FEMA. FEMA won't pay 100%, so we're told that possibly, I put all the quotes and things around it, that we may be able to make up that other 25% from the county's funds. But it all depends, the devil's in the details, and it all depends on what the rules are. All this money comes with lots of rules and time periods in which you can get reimbursed. So we're spending a lot of time on applications and reading definitions and making sure we have the right documents, but if there's money that we can get, we're going to apply for it.
Great. And I know that the supervisors last week had approved the 26 million. Have you heard anything from the county in regards to guidelines and applying and things like that yet?
No, they have not come out with anything like that yet.
So they're moving right ahead. Okay. Also, in regards to our pension trust that we put into last year, I believe, do we still have that? Are we putting that in this year?
We have the trust is set up with the money, the seed money that you put in. Because of our financial situation, we do not have enough funds to set aside any money into that pension trust now. But in my budget message, I talked about the two priorities that I wanted to see us put money into that we can't at this moment, which is back into our reserves and into the 115 trust.
Perfect.
So if we are blessed with some extra funds, there's a priority list we'll be bringing to you to ask you to put some money in there.
That's great, because that to me would be one of the priorities.
Yes.
It was very important to keep
Important
moving
to
on
us
that.
too.
All right. Do we have any more questions from the council?
I had one, and I
Jennings.
appreciated, I forget which of my colleagues brought it up, but I wanted to follow up. Our strategic plan called for some aggressive specific plans in this year. And I just want to make sure that I read this correctly, that other than what you mentioned just a moment ago, that we don't have any other specific plans charted out for 2020-21.
The strategic plan outlines, I think there are a couple of updates to existing specific plans.
Yeah, so
That are included for 2021, and then there are some preliminary land use studies. Those are budgeted. Those will be completed during the 2021 year.
which I'm asking about the Ziggurat property. So
Yes.
which one?
That is one of them, absolutely.
That's a land use
Should
study.
be, we're anticipating completion in quarter one of 2021 on that land use study.
Let's say we get the study back. There then isn't any money in the budget for the development of a specific plan from the land use study?
Correct. The actual specific plan, I believe, is it's a couple of years down the road in the strategic plan. More importantly, once that land use study is in place and the feds are looking to actually sell the property and bring a developer online, that would be the point where we would engage in that process, and we anticipate that it would be largely funded by the developer. So it would limit the city's costs significantly to proceed that way. It's also the quickest way to do it. If the city were to go ahead and do it, it costs more, and then you have to go back and amend the plan to make room for whatever the developer's proposing. So this is the most efficient and cost-effective way to do it. But the preliminary land use study is the key, because that will set the tone, that will outline the vision.
Okay. I think that's good. What I was hoping to avoid to be in some type of quandary where the federal government was pacing faster than we are on the liquidation of that property, and we don't have something in place for that. So as long as we've prepared for that reality, this will be the largest project that this council's ever touched, one of the largest that the city's ever encountered. So we've had so many conversations over the last year through the strategic plan process about how important that piece of property is for what comes next. I didn't want to lose all of that in the COVID-19 discussion and have us end up flat-footed, but as long as we're pacing correctly, I'll take that as a win.
Absolutely. We've been in regular communication with them regarding their process, and completion of that study in the first quarter will fit perfectly with their timeframe. So we're in no way holding up the process, and we will continue in lockstep working with them as we go.
Is there any, and you and I owe each other some time to dig into the city center status project, but are there any anticipated expenditures that we know we're going to have with respect to that project, assume it continues forward, that is not in this budget?
No.
Because I knew that there was an EIR cost that we had talked about previously and where that was going to lie. And go ahead.
Oh, we expect to have some updates on City Center for you in the coming weeks.
Oh, I'm
So-
sure you will.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that while we're approving this budget, or as we're going into approving the budget, that we're not going to need some funds that we're going to be without.
Sure. One thing to keep in mind with projects like City Center and any other development related projects, we are always receiving offsetting revenue. So even if for some reason there is an additional expenditure, it will be borne by the developer. So either way, it will not impact the general fund or have other budget ramifications.
That's very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me ask another question. So, thank you
Mayor,
very
if I could,
Please.
you brought up a good point about the strategic plan. And hope when we adopted the strategic plan, we would be back to you in June with an update on all those things, because we live and breathe COVID-19 24/7. That's going to be delayed a little bit, but we will bring you an updated with the dates and timelines and how we've paced and things that we've completed in the plan. So that's coming.
Thank you. All right, at this time, if I can have a motion to approve item number A, and that is proposed fiscal year 2020, 2021 operating and capital improvement program budget.
I make the motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion moved. I believe that is it unless council has any comments. All right, we're going to adjourn at 7 p.m. Thank you very much.